Have you ever wondered why so many people are shocked when they hear that their kidney function has already dropped significantly, even though they never felt pain, never noticed a clear warning sign, and believed they were doing everything right? Most of us imagine that if an important organ begins to struggle, it will send obvious signals. We expect discomfort, fatigue, or something dramatic enough to demand our attention, but your kidneys don't work that way. In fact, one of the most remarkable things about them is also what makes them so vulnerable. They are designed to keep adapting, adjusting, and quietly carrying a heavier workload long before you realize anything has changed. Think of them like two dedicated employees in a busy building. If one task becomes harder, they simply work a little longer. If the workload increases again, they adapt once more. Day after day, year after year, they continue doing their job without asking for recognition or sounding an alarm. The problem is that this remarkable ability to compensate can hide trouble for a very long time. By the time many people finally discover there is a problem, those tiny filtering units have already been working under unnecessary stress for years. What makes this even more surprising is that the greatest pressure on your kidneys often doesn't come from a single unhealthy meal or one bad habit. Instead, it comes from ordinary routines that seem completely harmless because millions of Americans repeat them every single day. They don't feel dangerous, they don't look dangerous, yet little by little, they force your kidneys to work harder than they were ever meant to. Today, I want to show you 4 hidden everyday pressures that silently increase your kidney's workload after the age of 50, along with one early sign that many Americans mistake as just another part of getting older. Once you understand what's really happening inside your body, you'll see why protecting your kidneys is often less about doing something extraordinary and more about removing the burdens they have been carrying for years. And if you enjoy learning the science behind healthy aging, explained in a simple, practical way, consider subscribing to the channel so we can continue this journey together. But before we explore those 4 hidden pressures, let's first understand why healthy kidneys are willing to work overtime for so long without asking for help. Why healthy kidneys are designed to compensate until they can't. Over the years, I've found that one of the biggest misunderstandings about kidney health is that people see the kidneys as nothing more than the body's filters. While filtering waste is certainly one of their most important jobs, it is far from the only one. Every minute of every day, your kidneys are carefully balancing the amount of water your body keeps, regulating minerals like sodium and potassium, helping control blood pressure, removing waste products from your bloodstream, and maintaining the stable internal environment that allows every organ to function properly. In many ways, they are less like simple filters and more like skilled managers quietly keeping an entire city running behind the scenes. One comparison I often share is to imagine thousands of tiny coffee filters working together at the same time. These microscopic filters, called nephrons, clean your blood continuously. When a small number of them become damaged, your kidneys don't immediately give up. Instead, the remaining nephrons simply work harder to make up the difference. This remarkable survival strategy is known as hyperfiltration compensation. At first, it seems like a brilliant solution because your blood tests may still appear normal and you may feel perfectly healthy. The hidden problem is that asking fewer filters to do more work every day is much like asking fewer workers to cover an entire factory. They may succeed for a while, but constant overload eventually wears them down. This is one reason kidney disease can remain invisible for so many years. According to the National Kidney Foundation, about 90% of people living with chronic kidney disease don't know they have it because the condition often develops without noticeable symptoms in its early stages. That is why understanding what quietly increases your kidney's workload matters long before you ever notice a problem. So what keeps forcing these tiny filters to work overtime day after day? Surprisingly, the first answer may already be sitting in your own kitchen. 1. Hidden sodium, the pressure your kidneys never get a break from. Something I hear all the time is, I hardly use any salt, so I don't think sodium is something I need to worry about. At first, that sounds perfectly reasonable. If you rarely reach for the salt shaker, it feels natural to assume your intake must be low. But after looking closely at countless eating patterns over the years, I've learned that the biggest source of sodium for many Americans isn't the salt they sprinkle on their meals. It's the sodium that quietly hides inside everyday packaged foods that don't even taste particularly salty. Think about a typical day: toast or a breakfast sandwich in the morning, a deli turkey sandwich for lunch, a bowl of canned soup on a busy afternoon, a frozen dinner after a long day, perhaps a bottled salad dressing, or a handful of crackers with dinner. None of these foods may taste overwhelmingly salty on their own, yet together they can deliver a surprisingly large amount of sodium before you ever pick up a salt shaker. What concerns me even more is what happens inside your kidneys after this pattern is repeated day after day. Imagine the plumbing system in an older home. If the water pressure stays slightly higher than normal every single day, the pipes may continue working for years. You can still turn on the faucet, water still flows, but the constant pressure slowly wears down the weakest parts of the system. Your kidneys experience something very similar. Inside each kidney are millions of tiny filtering structures supplied by extremely delicate blood vessels. When your body consistently handles excess sodium, those microscopic filters are forced to work under greater mechanical stress. Over time, that persistent pressure can strain these fragile vessels, making them less flexible and increasing the likelihood of gradual scarring. This damage doesn't happen overnight, and that is exactly why so many people never realize it is taking place. One practical habit I encourage is to ignore the front of the package for a moment and turn it around. Instead of looking only at the total sodium in the entire container, check the amount listed under sodium per serving and compare it with how many servings you actually eat. A package that looks like one meal may officially contain 2 or even 3 servings, making it surprisingly easy to consume far more sodium than you intended without realizing it. There is another important point that often gets overlooked. A product labeled low sodium is not automatically a healthy choice. Many highly processed foods simply replace sodium with other additives, refined starches, or added sugars to maintain flavor and texture. In other words, reducing sodium is only one piece of the puzzle. The closer a food is to its natural form, the less work your kidneys generally have to do to process everything that comes with it. But mechanical pressure is only one way the kidneys become overworked. The next hidden burden is even more common because it comes from something many people experience every single day without realizing how much extra work it creates for these tiny filters. 2. Blood sugar spikes, when your kidney filter becomes too busy. One idea I often encourage people to rethink is that you don't have to be living with diabetes for your kidneys to experience extra metabolic stress. Long before blood sugar reaches the level used to diagnose a disease, many adults begin experiencing frequent glucose spikes throughout the day. These repeated highs and lows are especially common in people with insulin resistance or prediabetes, conditions that often develop quietly over many years. Because they rarely cause obvious symptoms at first, it's easy to assume everything is fine while your kidneys are gradually being asked to do far more work than they were designed to handle. I see this pattern most often at breakfast because it's one of the easiest meals to overload with rapidly digested carbohydrates. A large glass of fruit juice, a plain bagel, a bowl of sweetened breakfast cereal, or a flavored coffee drink may seem like a quick and convenient way to start the morning. Yet together, these foods can send glucose into the bloodstream much faster than many people realize. Your body works hard to bring those levels back under control, but your kidneys are involved in that process as well. Imagine the filtration system in a home aquarium. When the water is clean, the filter runs smoothly with very little strain. But if the water becomes cloudy day after day, the filter has to work continuously just to keep the environment stable. It may continue functioning for quite a long time, yet the constant workload slowly wears down its moving parts. Your kidneys respond in a surprisingly similar way. Every repeated glucose surge encourages the tiny filtering units to increase their workload through a process called hyperfiltration. At first, this compensation helps maintain balance, but when it happens over and over again, excess glucose begins attaching to proteins in the body through a process known as glycation. These altered proteins become less flexible, promote inflammation, and gradually damage the delicate filtering structures that keep waste and important nutrients properly separated. The kidneys may continue doing their job remarkably well for years, but the cost of that extra effort quietly accumulates beneath the surface. One simple strategy I often recommend is changing the order of your meal rather than eliminating your favorite foods altogether. Try eating a source of protein first, such as eggs, plain Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or unsweetened nut butter, before moving on to bread, cereal, oatmeal, or fruit. This small adjustment can help slow digestion and reduce the sharp rise in glucose that follows a carbohydrate-heavy meal. There is one more misunderstanding worth clearing up. Drinking fruit juice is not the same as whole fruit contains fiber that naturally slows the absorption of sugar, while juice removes much of that protective fiber, allowing glucose to enter the bloodstream much more rapidly. Even juice labeled as 100% fruit juice can create a very different metabolic response than eating the fruit itself. Yet glucose isn't the only hidden burden your kidneys face. The next one may be even quieter because it doesn't begin with what you eat at all. It begins with how much of your day is spent sitting still. 3. Sitting too long. The circulation problem most people blame on aging. Another pattern I've noticed over the years is that many people blame aging itself for feeling slower, heavier, or more fatigued, when in reality, part of the problem may be that their kidneys are no longer receiving the healthy, steady blood flow they depend on. Every organ in your body relies on circulation, but your kidneys are especially demanding because they continuously filter large amounts of blood to maintain the body's internal balance. They cannot perform that job efficiently if the quality of blood flow gradually declines. As we grow older, our blood vessels naturally become a little less flexible. The inner lining of those vessels also produces less nitric oxide, a substance that helps arteries relax and allows blood to flow more easily. These changes are a normal part of aging, but they also mean the kidneys have less room for additional stress. When long periods of sitting become part of everyday life, whether it's watching television, driving, reading, working at a computer, or scrolling through a phone, blood flow slows even further. The issue isn't simply that you're sitting in a chair, it's that your circulation remains in a low-activity state for hours at a time, leaving your kidneys with a less efficient delivery system. I often compare this to a river that keeps an entire farming community alive. When the current is strong and steady, fresh water reaches every field, carrying nutrients while washing away waste. But when the river slows to a trickle, everything downstream receives less of what it needs. Stagnant areas begin to develop, and the whole system becomes less efficient. Something similar happens inside your body. Healthy movement encourages better circulation, supports the release of nitric oxide, and helps blood vessels remain more responsive and flexible. Without that regular stimulation, your kidneys may receive less optimal blood flow over time, making their daily work more difficult than it needs to be. One of my favorite strategies is something I call movement snacks. Instead of waiting until the end of the day for a single long walk, stand up every hour for just 2 or 3 minutes, walk around the house, stretch your legs, climb a few stairs, or simply march in place while waiting for your coffee or tea. These short bursts of movement repeatedly remind your circulation that it is meant to keep moving, not remain idle for hours. There is one important point many people overlook. A 30-minute walk in the evening is certainly beneficial, but it cannot completely erase the effects of spending the previous 10 hours sitting almost without interruption. Your body responds not only to how much you move, but also to how often you interrupt long periods of inactivity. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Before watching this video, how many hours a day do you think you were actually sitting? Many people are genuinely surprised once they begin paying attention to the answer. There is one final hidden burden that deserves special attention, especially after the age of 60. It isn't found in your kitchen, and it has nothing to do with exercise. Instead, it often begins inside the medicine cabinet, hidden within something millions of people reach for without giving it a second thought. 4. Pain relievers. When relief for one problem creates another. Something I've learned from years of talking with older adults is that many of them are trying to stay active despite everyday aches and pains. Sore knees after gardening, stiffness from arthritis, lower back discomfort after a long drive, or shoulder pain from lifting grandchildren are all incredibly common. Wanting relief is completely understandable. The problem isn't that pain relievers exist. The real concern is that some people begin relying on them so often that they stop thinking of them as medication and start treating them as part of their daily routine. What many people don't realize is that certain over-the-counter pain relievers can influence the way blood reaches the kidneys. To understand why that matters, it helps to know about substances called prostaglandins. These natural chemical messengers help keep blood vessels supplying the kidneys appropriately relaxed, especially during times when your body is under stress from dehydration, illness, aging, or reduced circulation. In a sense, prostaglandins act like traffic controllers, helping ensure that enough blood continues reaching the kidneys so they can keep filtering efficiently. One practical habit I encourage is paying attention not only to how much of a pain reliever you take, but also how often you take it. Many people focus entirely on dosage while overlooking frequency. A medication taken repeatedly over weeks or months deserves just as much attention as the amount taken on any single day. Keeping a simple note on your calendar or phone can reveal patterns you might otherwise miss. There is another important point worth remembering. A medication being available over the counter does not automatically mean it is designed for everyday long-term use. No prescription required simply means it is appropriate for many situations when used as directed. It should never be interpreted as completely harmless, no matter how often I take it. If pain becomes frequent enough that you regularly reach for medication, addressing the underlying reason is often far more valuable than repeatedly covering up the symptom. But even if you've managed to reduce all 4 of these hidden pressures, there is still one surprisingly common early sign that many Americans dismiss as a normal part of aging. In some cases, it can appear months before routine testing reveals that your kidneys are beginning to struggle. 5. The early sign many Americans mistake for just getting older. One change I encourage people to pay attention to is something so common that it is often dismissed without a second thought: waking up more frequently to urinate during the night. Many adults simply shrug and say, "Well, I'm getting older." Sometimes that explanation is true, but not always. While getting up can be normal for many older adults, a noticeable change in your usual pattern deserves attention rather than assumptions. One reason this can happen is that healthy kidneys normally become more efficient at concentrating urine while you sleep. This allows your body to hold on to more water overnight, so you can rest for several hours without needing to empty your bladder. If that concentrating ability begins to change, your kidneys may produce more urine during the night than they once did. That does not automatically mean kidney disease is present, but it may be one of the body's early signals that something deserves a closer look. At the same time, it's important not to jump to conclusions. Drinking several large glasses of water before bed is very different from waking up repeatedly, despite following the same evening routine you've had for years. The key is not a single night, but a consistent pattern that gradually becomes more frequent without an obvious explanation. One simple habit I recommend is keeping a brief 2-week record. Write down approximately what time you stop drinking fluids in the evening, how many times you wake up to urinate, and whether this differs from your normal routine. That information can be much more helpful than relying on memory if the pattern continues. There is also an important reminder I never want people to overlook. Frequent nighttime urination can have many possible causes besides changes in kidney function. An enlarged prostate in men, certain diuretic medications, elevated blood sugar, and even sleep apnea can all contribute to the same symptom. That is why this should never be used to diagnose yourself. Instead, think of it as a reason to pay attention, and if the change persists or becomes more noticeable, discuss it with your healthcare provider so the underlying cause can be identified. The encouraging news is that your kidneys don't ask for perfection. They simply benefit when the hidden pressures they face each day become a little lighter. So before we finish, let me share 5 simple habits that can help your kidneys work more efficiently without making your daily routine feel overwhelming. 5 small habits that help your kidneys work less, not harder. Throughout this video, I've shared 4 hidden pressures that can quietly increase your kidneys' workload year after year. The encouraging news is that protecting your kidneys doesn't require a perfect diet or a complete lifestyle makeover. In my experience, the greatest improvements usually come from small habits that reduce the amount of unnecessary work your kidneys have to perform every single day. Rather than asking your kidneys to become stronger, the goal is to stop making them work harder than they need to. The first habit is becoming more aware of hidden sodium. Before placing packaged foods into your shopping cart, take a few extra seconds to read the nutrition facts label. Pay particular attention to the sodium listed per serving, not just for the entire package. This simple habit can reveal surprising sources of sodium that are easy to overlook. The second habit begins at breakfast. Instead of starting your morning with mostly refined carbohydrates, try including a quality source of protein first. Eggs, plain Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, tofu, or other protein-rich foods can help create a steadier metabolic response before adding bread, oatmeal, or fruit. You don't necessarily have to eliminate carbohydrates, you simply want to give your body a better foundation before eating them. The third habit is one of the simplest, yet one of the most powerful. Make it a goal to stand up and move for 2 or 3 minutes every hour. These brief movement breaks help support healthy circulation throughout the day and remind your blood vessels that they are designed for regular movement, not prolonged stillness. The fourth habit is to become more mindful of how often you rely on over-the-counter pain relievers. If you notice that you're reaching for them week after week, consider it a signal to explore the underlying cause of the discomfort instead of focusing only on temporary relief. Your long-term kidney health may benefit from addressing the source rather than repeatedly managing the symptom. Finally, don't wait for symptoms before checking your kidney health. Simple laboratory tests such as eGFR, urine albumin, and serum creatinine can provide valuable information long before noticeable symptoms appear. These tests are especially worthwhile after the age of 60 or if you have risk factors that place extra demands on your kidneys. If you have a parent, spouse, sibling, or close friend over the age of 60, I hope you'll consider sharing this video with them. Sometimes one small conversation today can lead to healthier choices that protect kidney function for many years to come. And before we finish, there's one final message I want to leave you with, because understanding your kidneys should never leave you feeling afraid. It should leave you feeling hopeful. If today's video helped you see your kidneys from a completely different perspective, I'd really appreciate it if you gave this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Every week, I share practical, science-based strategies to help you stay healthier, stronger, and more independent as you grow older. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which kidney habit surprised you the most today? Your experience may encourage someone else to take that first important step toward protecting their own health. As we come to the end of this conversation, I hope there is one idea you'll remember more than anything else. The biggest problem usually isn't that your kidneys have suddenly become weak. More often, it's that they have been quietly working overtime for years, adapting to hidden pressures without asking for attention. They have continued filtering your blood, balancing your body's fluids, and protecting your health every single day, even when life placed more demands on them than they were designed to carry. The encouraging part is that your kidneys are remarkably resilient. While no one can turn back the clock, reducing unnecessary stress today can still make a meaningful difference tomorrow. That's why I never want people to believe they need a perfect diet, an expensive detox program, or a miracle supplement to support their kidneys. In most cases, lasting progress begins with something much simpler: creating a lifestyle that asks for a little less of these hardworking organs every single day. Small choices truly matter. Reading one nutrition label before buying a meal, choosing a protein-rich breakfast a little more often, standing up every hour instead of sitting all afternoon, thinking twice before making pain relievers a daily habit, scheduling routine kidney screening before symptoms appear. None of these actions feels dramatic on its own, but together, they can gradually reduce the burden your kidneys have been carrying for years.
Thank you for staying with us to see end of the video. A subscribe, a share, or even a quick comment from you have motivated us to create more great content.